let's dive right on in here, Kyle. I would love for you to share what I call your BC story, your before crypto story.
Okay. So I always like to start with actually, I wanted to be a car mechanic. It was like my goal as a little kid, which is very weird, obviously, but it's an important story to how I ended up being the CEO and co-founder of Pinata, which is I told my mom at 7 years old that I wanted to be a car mechanic, and she had higher hopes. Nothing wrong with being a car mechanic, but she had higher hopes. But what she said was, Kyle, it's okay if you want to be a car mechanic, just make sure you own the mechanic shop. And that kind of framing was obviously super powerful and impactful to me today. Fast forward, I quit my job in April of 2017 to jump into crypto. I was actually in motorsports, building software in motorsports. And I quit in April of 2017 to jump into blockchain and crypto. And the reason I did that is, I gotten into the crypto space in 2015, 2016. I was enamored with smart contracts the first time I learned about that. Back then, it was like you can only get information on Twitter or maybe Reddit or something like that. But I became confident enough to quit my job and just said, I'm going to jump into this and I'm going to figure it out as I go. I didn't really have a plan. And then what I did is, being in Omaha, Nebraska, there wasn't like a bunch of people there that I could rely on that were in the space. So as a non-technical person, what I did is I flew to a hackathon in New York. And the reason I did that is I wanted to understand the technology at a very deep level. And went there, didn't know anybody, had to meet blockchain engineers, and they were like, why is this non-technical guy coming up here and meeting or trying to build with us? But anyways, I got to learn so much about the technology, and I just kept going to these hackathons and trying to find my way. And again, going back to Omaha, I was tired of flying everywhere, so I decided I needed some friends in Omaha. Started the blockchain meetup group in town. Grew to like 500 people, which is pretty wild back in 2017. And that's how I met my co-founder, Matt Over. He's the CTO of Pinata. And what we did is just kept going to these hackathons, kept going to, we were building blockchain applications, and that's eventually how we ended up coming up with the idea of Pinata. But it was a year of basically just kind of like vibing around and just trying to show up. So
I love that. I love that you had a vision and you were encouraged to think bigger. And when you had the idea of entering into the space, you took a line of action to learn what you needed to know so that you could actually make a difference in the space. So I want to now dive deeper into how did you build Pinata? What is the origin story, the behind the scenes, if you will, of how you built Pinata?
Absolutely. So, as I mentioned, Matt and I were going to these hackathons and building blockchain applications in a consulting role. And what we found out is like storing data on chain is like exponentially expensive. Even back then, I think it was something like $4 million to store a gigabyte of data on Ethereum. And what everybody was using to store data off chain was this protocol called IPFS, or the Interplanetary File System. But back in 2018, it wasn't super fast, it wasn't super stable. And basically Matt was just tired of like spinning up these IPFS nodes for himself. And so what he did is, he's like, hey, what if we just spin up these IPFS nodes and let people use our IPFS nodes to manage their off-chain blockchain data. And so we came up with that idea, we thought it was a good one. We decided to launch it at a hackathon called ETH Berlin in 2018, so like October of 2018. At that hackathon, we actually ended up being one of the winners there, and at that point, we thought we were going to take over the world, raise a bunch of money, and everybody was going to use us. And absolutely nobody used us for at least 2 years. Like it was, we had less than 1,000 users, and it was just Matt and I in Omaha trying to build this company, and nobody understood like why we were doing it except for a select few amount of people. listening to the VC panel before this, one of the comments they said is don't build for them. And we certainly did not, because I was pitching to VCs the whole time, hundreds of no's, not millions of no's. But they didn't understand it either. And there's kind of two reasons for that. Back in 2018 when we launched, it was like a crypto winter at the time, so very, very difficult. People weren't coming into the space, most people were leaving. And so there wasn't a lot of hype. And then the other problem was NFTs weren't like a thing yet. NFTs were around. They became a thing in 2017 with CryptoKitties. Matt and I actually went to the ETH Waterloo hackathon where CryptoKitties launched, and it was always a part of our story. And we understood NFTs all the way back in 2017. I have a blog on NFTs in 2017 talking about crypto farming, because I'm from Nebraska. I'm like, how do I apply what I know to NFTs? And it doesn't make any real sense now that you can read it now, but I've been thinking about it for a long time. But in 2018, there was like 4 people playing around with these NFTs. And so we needed NFTs to take off. We knew it was a perfect use case for us, but the market just wasn't, it was never there. I have pitch decks from 2019 I was looking at, and we just called it gaming because we didn't know what else to call it. I would tell people about NFTs, and they didn't really understand what it was. And so what happened is we started writing blogs about NFTs in 2020 or 2019, 2020, and we could start to see the space take off. We had a bunch of people that were using us for NFTs to manage their images, their videos, whatever the file type was, and we could start seeing it take off. And then obviously in 2021 it exploded. But it was like I was living in my parents' basement, like trying to make it happen. It was a difficult time for sure.
You made it happen.
Yeah.
So let's talk deeper about what really worked. What worked so very well? You kind of pinpointed a little bit, but I want to dive deeper into that. You mentioned the blogging. Can you share more about how the blogging allowed you to finally get VC funding and gain that attention and that traction to move you forward?
Yeah, so, and this kind of just came to me right on stage, but realizing being in Omaha, and when I was talking about, I could only find information on Twitter or Reddit, it's always been difficult in this space to get good information. And so, my whole thing was like, all right, Matt, we're gonna be here, we're not in San Francisco or in the hubs, like how are we going to connect with the people that we need to connect with? And we just chose to blog, and we blogged about technical content, and internally at Pinata we have a rule called the 5-to-1 show ratio, which is we have to write 5 blogs that are educational, talking about the space and like teaching people how to build or how to do something before we'll write a blog that's just like straight showing Pinata, right? And so, we were writing, and our blog goes all the way back to 2018, and you can see the iteration of our ideas as we're going through, the blockchain space in general, but eventually we start to pinpoint that NFTs are becoming a thing. And as I kind of mentioned, we were writing about NFTs in 2020, and one of the blogs I wrote is who's responsible for NFT data? And I wrote that in like the summer of 2020. And that blog actually is how we ended up getting funded. As I had mentioned, I had hundreds of no's. VCs, everyone I pitched to, maybe I'm a bad pitch guy, but they were all saying no. But that blog ended up being found by a VC that was looking for somebody that was looking at the space from a different perspective and a different lens. And this is right, February of 2021 when they reached out to me, and there was a lot of hype and like kind of silliness going on, and they could see the way that we were thinking about the space was super unique. And then they started asking around of like how many people are using Pinata, and they were talking to all of these projects, and they ended up finding out that there's like everybody is ultimately using us under the hood. And from there they called me on like a Wednesday, and by Friday we were good to go and had our seat ready.
Gold. Thank you so much for sharing that. The top takeaway from what you just shared right now is to do what you do well, and do it again and again and again, and really lean into that.
Yeah, we just kept doing it, and eventually, like, there's this critical mass that kind of eventually happened. As I mentioned, we had less than 1,000 users for like 2 years, and then, but we could see our metrics. There'd be like one person that would use our platform every day, and then it would be like 2 after a couple weeks, and then like 3, and then 4, and those were the things that like kept us going. And we could see people were reading our blogs. Like we had all the internal kind of data that we needed to prove to ourselves, because we weren't getting any external validation. At least internally, Matt and I, had that confidence that we were right. We were just early. You're right. You're early. Same thing as being wrong. We just needed the market to show up.
That's so very true. So as we're sharing more about the steps that led to your current success, I just want to touch on these pinatas and the branding, because it's so very important when you're thinking of your branding to choose something that transcends the trends and is also very relevant to where the technology is currently at. So can you share with us more about what led to these bright colored pinatas?
So as we had like no users, we had a bunch of time to kind of think about our brand and actually where we wanted to take it. And I was actually originally inspired by CryptoKitties in 2017 at ETH Waterloo, because when they launched there, they did an incredible job at this hackathon. It was kind of like a guerrilla marketing campaign, and they got all of the developers excited about CryptoKitties before people knew what it was. And I was inspired that, and I always had that in the back of my mind. And we were going to these hackathons, and I was like, how can we develop a brand that takes off at a hackathon? Like, how can we get a sticker that is like currency that people will put on their laptop and will basically be brand ambassadors for us? And so we were looking for a logo and a brand that accomplished that. But we were also thinking about, I never wanted to hook our brand to the technology itself. So our consulting company had, a name that was about blockchain, and everybody knew it. But the one thing kind of I was inspired about is, if you think about Apple, and I know everybody thinks about Apple all the time, so this isn't super unique, but what's crazy is like they came up with this abstract thing, which is an apple to represent technology or computer. But what they've been so successful at is they went from personal computing in the beginning to eventually iPods, and then the iPhone, and they're able to transcend time, transcend technology. And again, I was kind of looking for that abstract concept versus like IBM, right? International Business Machines was never going to be able to eventually create the iPhone. And so that was always in the back of my mind. And then as for Pinata specifically, we didn't want it to be technology based, but we wanted it like derived from the technology. So on IPFS, you don't store data, you pin it. And so we were like pinball, pinwheel, and eventually landed on Pinata. And it's been an amazing kind of brand to have.
Gold. With someone who's all about branding, I mean, I'm all about being gold, the genuine, original, loving dreamer, so that's why I wear gold, because it's an embodiment. So I really do respect how Pinata has been able to build this brand that certainly transcends the trends and technology. So as we dive deeper into the build out of where Pinata is now, you have a team, I understand, of 45 members. So let's talk about the team culture and how you went about building your team and establishing a community around what Pinata is all about as your platform grew.
Yeah, absolutely. So our success happened during COVID, so we leaned super heavy into fully remote. Now I think we're in like 18 different states and like 8 or 9 different countries of those 45 people. And what's really fun about it is we get all of these different perspectives from all these different places. I knew, obviously being from Omaha and living in Omaha, that I have a different perspective on the world compared to somebody that is building their startup in Silicon Valley. And I wanted to lean into that really heavy, and I felt like it was, part of the ethos of Web3 and blockchain and that kind of thing. Like, I felt I had a chance in this space being in Omaha because Web3 was kind of open in that direction. And so, I really wanted to lean in that with our company and hiring from all over the US team and all over the world. But one of the things about like remote work is how do you build those connections? We do obviously have a great brand that's infectious, and people are happy just looking at it, and that kind of emanates through our company. But we also have to be very thoughtful about how do we build relationships in a fully remote workforce where you don't have those moments where you're going to lunch together or maybe going to get a coffee or something like that, where side conversations happen and where relationships are really built. And so what we did is we spent a lot of time with virtual coffees, as simple as that sounds, where we get paired up every other week with somebody within the company. You just spend 30 minutes obviously getting to know them. And it's great because like people are from, we have here today, I'm from Omaha, we have somebody from Oklahoma, we have somebody from Portland, Maine, and we have somebody from San Diego, right? And so we all get to learn the kind of differences between people, and it's really fun and exciting. So we do that. The other thing we do is try to meet up in person as much as possible. So obviously coming to events like this, or going to hackathons, or we have company retreats and things like that. And then we also do some things related to our customers. So again, listening to the panel before this, they were talking about talk to your customer, talk to your customer, talk to your customer. We've built a really tight feedback loop where our company focuses on the customer as much as possible. And part of that is like, we're down at that booth and we'd love everybody to come talk to us, but we want to learn as much as possible and talk to them. We have these things called community updates every Friday where our community manager comes in, creates a 5 to 10 minute video. That's the only thing that's mandatory at Pinata. It's this 5 to 10 minute video of what's happening with our product, what's going well, what are the cool projects, and then what's going bad, right? And making sure that we are as close to them as possible, even if you don't have direct contact with the customer, making sure that we can talk to them. And then, it's a lot of fun. It's kind of, again, we get to meet a bunch of different people, and we're always trying to hire from all over the place. So.
Yes, we'll definitely talk about how Pinata is hiring. But first, I really want to dive into some of these challenges that Pinata has faced, especially for those of us who are building and have probably been challenged. And I'm wondering, what challenges have you been able to overcome as you built your team and grew the platform?
Yeah, one of them was like scale. During 2021, we were just like trying to stay up. The craziness of that NFT year, I guess, was pretty wild. And there was a lot of long nights, or waking up in the middle of the night trying to like get everything to work, and making sure that all these NFT projects that relied on us were able to succeed. So that was an issue. Going from 4 people to 20 people in 1 year, and then now 20 to 45 in less than a year is crazy. Things break all the time from a relationship or communication perspective. And we always have to kind of make sure and have people understand that you need to. You're probably going to be letting go of things as you grow, and your job at Pinata, and I always talk about it as we're trying to build leaders at Pinata. And what I mean by that is you as a leader, whether you're leading people or you're just a leader of like a technology or a subject, you don't have to necessarily lead people, is you need to drive decision-making and autonomy across the organization as much as possible, in making sure that you have the ability as somebody at Pinata to make the biggest decision possible in whatever your role is. And that's like a huge part of our company. And I kind of always talk about it as everybody always thinks about the successes, but I'm actually trying to like get people to make the biggest possible failures that they can, and like feel that and learn from that. And then if you do that, you know, you're going to understand things much deeper than being told how to do something, or you know, people are allowing you to do something at Pinata. It's really fun to allow people to go make mistakes and learn from them and build from them.
Build together.
Absolutely.